Welcome to Why Such a Fuss, an exciting new channel dedicated to help individuals and businesses to learn more about data protection in a way that is easy and engaging. I'm Christina from CVG Solutions, and I am a fully qualified data protection professional. I am passionate about educating, empowering, and enabling businesses to thrive. Remember to like and subscribe to this channel and help us to spread the word. Data protection is there for a reason. It protects you, your family, loved ones, customers, employees from coming to harm through the use of personal data. So make sure you click subscribe. Now, get ready to embark on a journey of growth and knowledge as we dive into the world of data protection. The legend that is Rowenna Felding, data protection, data ethics, and digital privacy nerd, is with us once again. Great to have you again on the podcast, Rowenna.
It's very nice of you to keep inviting me back.
I love talking to you. That's what it is. So this time I'm going to go straight into today's topic with a question. Why is it important to have a purpose for processing data? We both know that the purpose of processing is one of the principles of the regulation. But what I want to explore in today's discussion is why is it important?
Yeah, so there's a big question. I mean, purpose is the absolute underpinning and foundation of pretty much all of, almost all of data protection law. You've got to know why you're doing something with somebody's personal data. You've got to have an end in sight, and what you're doing with the data, the processing, has to be necessary to achieve that purpose. It's important because if any listeners who work in IT will be familiar with the concept of scope creep, which is where something starts out being intended for one thing and then gets loads of other uses piled on top of it and ends up being not very good at anything, like multifunction printers, for example. Rubbish at everything. Keeping track of purposes for processing is the gateway to figuring out data minimization of processing, data accuracy, data relevance, data adequacy, quite often the security, whether or not data can be reused lawfully, and whether or not it's lawful to process it in the first place. Yeah. So if your purpose of processing is something that is contrary to law, then there's no lawful basis. You won't have. So if you're thinking of compiling, say, a hit list, there is no form of data protection law that will allow you to do that.
Yes.
So, but also purpose is really, really key for making sure that processing of personal data stays in the organization's interests and the data subject's interests. In this day of infinitely replicable digital data, it's so easy to just grab and reuse, build, distribute, without thinking about the potential consequences, the potentials for harm, the management overhead, the resources needed to do it safely, sanely, and responsibly. Making purpose of processing the underpinning principle there helps keep that organizational thinking on why are we doing this with data? What was it we're trying to achieve? How does what we're doing achieve this thing we want to achieve? And how do we do it safely?
Yes. And I see, again, in some of my clients, when we go through or start creating the ROPA, because most of them didn't have it, so we start creating the ROPA, and you start looking, okay, we're collecting this data and this data. Why? What's the purpose? How you know what I mean? Oh no, we just thought it might be useful, right? Okay. Or there is a legacy behind. We've always collected it. And then when you start prompting them, actually, we don't need it. We could do without it. And that's where it starts sort of streamlining it. Until you ask that question, it's almost like they don't even think about it. It doesn't even reach the frontal lobe, I think is called.
I mean, that's how human thinking, human innovation works. We take shortcuts, we try stuff out to see if it works, and then we go back and we, retrofit order and method onto it. So it's not surprising that organizations are doing stuff and then only getting around to worrying about why they're doing it and whether or not they're doing it well later on, if at all.
No, yeah. And sometimes, as I said, the legacy start many years ago. They might start collecting certain data because at the time there was a purpose for collecting the data, and then the person that perhaps introduced the process has now left without writing it down, without any handover, and they just carry on. It stays there like that without ever questioning, is this the right process? Are we doing it, the right way? Should we do it better? Without even re-looking at it. And so I think maintaining GDPR, it's important, but I think it goes beyond that in terms of, as a business itself, you should constantly be looking at your processes, whether there is personal data or not, in general, I'm talking about, are they still fit for purpose? There is always a way of improving. GDPR is part of GDPR, continuous improvement is there. But continuous improvement is in the ISO standards, is in ITIL, is in Lean Six Sigma, is everywhere. So, I think the universe, if you want, is trying to tell us something.
You're probably right. Yeah. I think it's quite common as well for organizations to not really understand the difference between purpose and processing activity. For example, I encounter a lot of organizations say, we collect your email address so that we can send you the newsletter. Well, sending newsletters is a processing activity. It's not a purpose. The purpose of the newsletter is to perhaps inform, to maintain good relations, to show people, where their money's going or what the company is doing or whatever. Those are purposes. But the actual processing activity is sending the newsletter. And it's really easy to get into a terrible pickle if you confuse those two, because then you say, well, we collected the email address to send the newsletter, and that's what we told them. We now can't use this email address to send the invite to an event that we've got because we said we were only doing it for the newsletter. Whereas if they said, we want your email address because we want to maintain a relationship with you, we want to communicate news and events to you, we want to get your feedback, yada, yada, yada. That allows for a whole bunch of processing activities like sending newsletter, like I won't say analytics because that's got to be consent-based. That's Pekka. Let's steer away from that. But say just counting the amount of interest there is in a particular thing, or so purpose. It's like you said, you've got to ask why. And I always say, take the toddler approach. Just keep asking why until you've got to the ultimate purpose, and that's what should go in the ROPA. Keep the processing activity to the description of processing.
And that actually, what you just said, just remind me something. There is a technique used in Lean Six Sigma, the Lean side, where when you're looking for the root cause, you're asking why 5 times, so that you're breaking it down until you get to the bottom, which is the real root cause. So yes, Rowenna, an absolute pleasure to have you, and I hope we get to do it again soon. But in the meantime, would you like to tell our audience how they can get in touch with you?
Yes, indeed. I am on Twitter a lot at Miss IG_geek, and I air quite a lot of data protection and otherwise related opinions. I write on and post on LinkedIn, where I am Rowenna Fielding or Miss IG Geek. I have a website for my consulting practice, which is missinfogeek.net. And I also publish educational and explaining articles, materials, tools, that sort of thing, to help people understand data protection on buymeacoffee.com/MissIGGeek.
And if you would like to get in touch with me, I can be found on LinkedIn, Facebook, and Instagram. Just search for CVG Solutions. You can also reach my website through those channels, which is currently under rework. So the new one will be out soon. Alternatively, you can email me at info@cvgsolutions.co.uk.